about like this is like the newest one for me is like, oh, I just want my blue belt. I'm like, dude, like, that's kind of it's not the point, man. Like, just gotta keep on going and just have this in like forever, because this is gonna be with you forever. If you want a blue belt, I'll give it to you one right now. And that's it.
Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mayn Idea podcast, where today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Brandon Walensky. I just want to take a second to say thank you to everyone who's submitted 5-star reviews on the podcast on Spotify. It has exceeded 100 reviews very quickly after the initial messages that I've been putting out in the intro. So thank you so much to those that have. Those that want to support it, takes 30 seconds. You just click the little drop-down menu on Spotify, rate 5 stars, provided you've listened to one full episode. Otherwise, it won't let you do it. And submit it. It helps so much with the show. It helps with organic placement and getting the show in front of other people who are interested in human performance, strength and conditioning, and jiu-jitsu. Also want to shout out to all the YouTube subscribers because, again, the show has grown more in the last month than it had grown over the previous 2 years. So the videos are starting to circulate, the reels, the clips, the full-length videos. So if you want to see a different version of the whole show in video format with me and the guest, you can check out the YouTube. It's Mayn Idea, and you can subscribe there, like, comment, do all that kind of stuff. I know it's kind of corny to shout that out in the beginning, but it really does help now understanding what I understand about the analytics on the back end. So any kind of engagement on there is awesome. With the positive reviews, I do my best to engage as much as possible and respond to you. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time to do that. Brandon Walensky is a second-degree jiu-jitsu black belt under Clark Gracie, owner of Walensky Jiu Jitsu Academy in San Marcos, and a judo black belt under Paula Fernando. To support this show, please check out the sponsors in the show notes. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Brandon Walensky. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, man. You've been on my list of people that I've wanted to get on the show. And then after coming down and doing the Brazil fundraiser with you and Clark and Sinistro and Johnny, getting to actually like learn firsthand from you, your techniques. All you guys put on such a great seminar that day. So each of you are now on my list. I've had Johnny and Sinistro on, and Clark will be on in September, but
Nice.
I've been stoked to talk to each one of you guys. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here, brother.
No, thank you so much, man. It's exciting. Man, man even told me that you were there, and I was like, dude, I didn't even meet him. You should have told me, like, introduce us, because but yeah, he told me about you, and it's just awesome that you were there, but I didn't get a chance to meet you. But now we're here, so it's exciting.
Yeah, it was. I kind of just sat in the corner and tried to absorb as much as I can. And to be fair, I wish I had video recorded it all because there were such good techniques. And then I got home and I tried to implement them, and I could only remember like 2. So such
Yeah.
is life. But one thing that we didn't really get to do that day, which I've specifically been wanting to talk to you about because it's a theme on the show a lot, and I'm able to talk to people from all different backgrounds in martial arts, but because a lot of the techniques were from the ground, we didn't really address any stand-up stuff. And you have a unique perspective because you're a black belt in judo.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, given your skill set in both of these martial arts, how valuable do you feel like your experience in judo was for your martial arts career?
Well, for me, starting in judo, I feel like I had like the best of like best case scenario. You know what I mean? Because like I was given judo, I was given my stand up game, and that's all I trained for like a good 3.5, 4 years. Like that's all I trained was like judo, and then I started like going into both, judo and jiu-jitsu at the same time. But man, it was amazing. Like the training, being able to be confident on my feet with all these guys that just do jiu-jitsu or just as guard pullers. But honestly, I'll be real with you. Like I feel like I'm a guard puller now too, because like so many people in my division, they just pull guard, So I've been like kind of been more into that side of jiu-jitsu, but I'm so comfortable on my feet, so that it's like it's great. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like that's both gi and no gi? Obviously, you've competed in both. So do you feel like there's been within your weight division, there's just a general transition towards more guard pulling as the attack
I feel like
because people lack that stand up, or why do you think that's happening?
no, I think people definitely have great stand up in my divisions as well, but I honestly think because us like smaller and lighter guys are so good on our on our backs with guarding, so it's like oh, it's so hard to pass someone's guard with the lighter guys. They're so flexible that you can't control them, you can't pin them down because I feel like they have that training from bigger guys smashing them, forcing them on their back. Because that's what happened to me when I was coming up. I was the smaller guy, probably the smallest guy in the room, and I wouldn't be able to like sweep someone, or I wasn't able to like stay on the top position. They would just like literally bench press me off. So I was like, man, I had to get good on my back. You know what I mean? So I had to be able to get my guard pretty, developed and being able to attack from the bottom. And then slowly but surely, I feel like later, once I got my guard good, then I was like, oh, okay, I can sweep people now. And then I could like start like getting heavier, knowing how to be positioning and stuff. But I think that's what it is. I think that people in my division, especially, they're forced to be on their back. And this is like honestly what we're most comfortable in, being on our backs, being able to guard, being able to defend from our backs. So it's like not so much like we don't have any stand-up game, but I feel like it's where we're comfortable, and it's like it's hard, get guys like in my division to pass their guard. It's nearly impossible. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
When you think about like, you're a coach now, you own your own school, you come up under Clark and have an amazing pedigree and where your lineage goes, right, as far as legitimacy.
Yeah.
When you think about like school structure and how to properly teach people martial arts, how to properly teach them, of course, jujitsu, but when you're assessing that, like, where do you think stand-up should fit into that development process? Because, someone like yourself who started to learn that at such a young age, there's a lot of passive things that you begin to understand that someone like me trying to figure it out at 35, it would take me a decade to get to proficiency levels where like my body naturally does smart things in terms of stand up. So what happens is, and this has happened to me as a result of lack of skill, I make some error and it costs me a lot, right? Because stand-up's dangerous. I mean, you fall from the ground with someone who weighs more than you and they land on you. It's super easy to pop a rib, put your hand back, tweak your elbow, tweak your wrist, whatever. And I think as a result, a lot of people stray away from that because they're coming into martial arts later in their life. Yeah. They're not coming into it, as a teenager or as a young adult. And so they feel themselves pay that price a couple times, and it's just like striking. You get punched in the face 10 times, and then you have a decision to make. Do you want to keep getting punched in the face, or do you want to do something else? So when you think about that structure and being a coach and having your students, what do you think's like the sweet sauce on how much we should emphasize stand-up practice in the academy and how much should we overlook it?
I mean, like you said, I have well, my students, I have like a good range, I have kids all the way up to like 50, 55-year-olds that are training with me. And like you said, it people get hurt, they don't want to fall, and it's like no matter how many times I show them like how to properly fall, it's still like you said, little things can happen, little tweaks. You can fall on your hand, fall on your wrist, and then they're out for like 2-3 months, because of an injury where it's like could have been avoided. So it's hard to balance, and I tend to teach my guys like how to like properly drill and like, hey, what to expect and mostly more than anything, like the dangers of the stand-up, being like in a clinch and then someone sitting on your knee and then blowing your knees out. That's I think my biggest fear, because sometimes I'll have my guys, all right guys, like let's go up on the wall and then we're gonna have like a pair come out and we're gonna do just stand up. No guard pulling. Let's just try to take each other down, and then I'm like literally there like, oh, don't sit on the knees, because they'll be on the clinch, and then like don't sit on the knees, and then that's the first thing they do. So I feel like it's like a natural thing to just clinch and then have a seat on the knees, but it's like I've told everybody before, like don't do that. That's like the worst thing you can do, and then because of this and this, and then. But a lot of times too, even for me, like if I go against white belts or someone that has never done any judo before, I feel like I can't go 100%, because if I do like a hip throw, like a ippon tsunagi, it's something super simple, and they don't know what's going on, they're gonna land on their face, they're gonna land on their hand, like land wrong, something, So even myself, I can't go 100% and like try to practice my throws because it's something you got to like commit to. I feel like for like stand up, it's like foot sweeps, super easy, right? You just sweep the foot, they fall on their butt, and then they're fine.
Right.
But like hip throws, you literally pick someone up off the ground and then you dump them on their back. You know what I mean? So it's just like that's my thought process on the whole thing. So if we're not careful with those little things or like what's the most dangerous, then yeah, people are for sure gonna get hurt. And for me and my students, safety obviously is the number one thing. I don't want them getting hurt. I want them to come back the next day and be able to train and be able to come in as much as possible. So I feel like I do a lot of drills of like how to pick your partner up, and then like if we dump, then it's like okay, someone experienced and slowly dump the partner. But if it's like live rolling, I'm like there, I'm like about to like hold them like little kids, like hey, don't no, don't fall. So I feel like it's definitely should have a balance of knowing how to fall, how to be able to take your partner down. It's very, very important with the stand-up game because you see all the memes online and all this stuff like, oh, you're in a street fight, you're just gonna pull guard right away, you're not gonna be able to know what to do. So yeah, so we do I tend to do a lot more like double legs and like single legs and like foot sweeps than like hip throws, because also too in like jiu-jitsu, if someone latches onto your back and you still throw them, it's not over yet, right? We still keep on going.
Right.
So then it's more like danger, you know what I mean?
There seem to be a lot of, quintessentially dangerous positions that are also, we just have a natural tendency to do when we don't know what we're doing. Like, you see this one a lot, and it's another like very high risk position where you see, I guess, mostly probably white or white blue. Someone's on their knees, they're trying to defend their back, and they've decided to come up out of turtle. So they're like kind of sitting on their knees, and someone's behind them, and they go to rip them to the ground, and they pull that person past their flexed knees over on their back instead of, bringing them to their side. And it's partially done out of, aggression and excitement that they have the potential to get this great position and a seatbelt on the back, and they try to throw their hooks in while they do it. But when you think about that anatomically, it's like putting a 180-pound backpack on someone while they're sitting on their knees and just releasing it, right? And all of a sudden, all that weight pulls back. And it's not because one person is being malicious, and it's not because the other person is being lazy. It's just the product of two people trying to do the right things but not knowing the positional awareness.
Exactly.
And it's wild. Like when I always use the example of watching Sinistro and Johnny train together, because they train at, like, if they're both preparing for something, watching them train live is crazy because they train at a fucking clip. Like, they're going so hard.
Yeah.
And to an untrained eye, it looks chaotic. Like, these guys are really trying to hurt each other. But the more you watch it, you realize it's actually this incredible interaction between two people that have known each other for so long, trust each other on an extremely deep level, and are able to ratchet it up to that 98, 99% and stay safe because subconsciously they're invested in that person not getting injured, right? Because if Johnny hurts Sinistro, you're losing your best training partner in an instant, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about preparing for competitions and getting out on the mats on like a bigger stage, how do you select for the right kind of like preparation partner within your academy?
So right now my schedule, like I teach every class at my academy in the evenings. But during the day, I still go down and train at Clark's. So kind of like you said, like Johnny and Sinistro have like that trust, that bond, the training partner. It's like the same with like me and Clark, honestly. Like when Clark gets ready for a tournament, he's like, hey, come help me out. Or like I'm getting ready for something. I'm like, hey, let's go train. I'm like, all right. So, and like I know, we've never really hurt each other. Obviously, we'll get like a little bit of elbows or like knees, little just minor things. But we're going at each other like 100% and like trying to just get better and push ourselves, and with Clark especially, I have like I want to say like 2 or 3 black belts that are pretty tough in my academy as well, and it's like the same thing. And I feel like you said, like black belts, we know how to go hard, but obviously safe at the same time. You know what I mean? So me, like, I select my guys, but honestly, I feel like I can get good training with anybody, as long as they know that, like, their fundamentals and what they're doing. You know what I mean? As long as not they're throwing fists and elbows and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. You train long enough, you see some wild stuff.
Oh man. Yeah, for sure.
One thing so from watching, videos of you training, from also being there and learning live lessons from you, and then just you combing through YouTube and everything like that, there's like a cool craftiness. I would call it craftiness that you have when you set up submissions. And the reason that I find it fascinating or interesting is that submissions are this weird thing that I think from day one everyone wants, right? You just you want to start to sub people. It's natural. It's one of the most fun parts of training, right? It's because it's a definitive thing that happens where you feel like you're getting better, even though that's not necessarily true. A lot of the growth process in jiu-jitsu happens from repeatedly just showing up and building body awareness and weight distribution, all this kind of stuff. But the submissions are like the punctuation points on that. And there's something that if you try too hard for, you telegraph it. Mm-hmm. And then if you telegraph it, then the opportunity is not there, right? Yeah. So you watch high skill level people like yourself, and it looks wild, but there is a method to the madness of this building up or setting up to then take the back or sweep them or sink into submission. So when you look at the developmental process from white belt up to where you are now, how do you think people should view submission attempts? At what point is it advantageous for someone to really try to hone in on a couple different things to get down really well? And on the same side of that coin, to what degree should they just allow freedom to bring in creativity to where they start to develop a style, so to speak, of attacking those submissions?
Man, that's a really good question. I feel well, for me personally, growing up, like I said, I was the smallest in the room. I really didn't start tapping people till 3, maybe 4 years in, because I'm just getting overpowered, out-muscled, just literally grown men having their way with this teenager, Oh, I'm going to pass the guy. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm just going to put my hand on this kid's chest and not let him move. And then I couldn't move. I had no idea how to overpower and use my technique to be able to beat someone else. But obviously I was starting to get my game, like you say, my baits. So I had to get better because I'm not as strong. So I had to force myself to come up with baits or little traps and be hey, make you think that you're going to do something, but in reality, you're going to fall right into a trap. You know what I mean? So I feel for me, I was kind of forced into doing that. I wasn't able to, I'm just going to work this armbar from the guard and then I'm going to out muscle it and get it no matter what. You know what I mean? I couldn't do that. I had to be able to get my 2, 3, 4, 5 different setups or traps, and then I'll be oh, okay, and or this works, hey, this works, and I would just start to see what people were doing, and maybe passing my guard. Hey, this guy's in the half guard and he's controlling my knee. What can we do from this position? Oh, I can grab his wrist, I can pull his grip, and then I have a little 2-3 seconds to be able to get my leg out, and then boom, triangle. You know what I mean? And then just right. So little things like that where I had to really study and analyze what my partner was doing, what were they looking for, what were they forcing in those positions, and then I was able to kind of counter. You know what I mean?
As you develop that ability to start to hold your own against people that are bigger, I mean, this is a serious challenge, and I actually think as much as it is a challenge, it's also a gift, because some of the most technical people I've ever been able to train with are smaller. Yeah. Because there's no option B, right? If you're a small guy, you're just going to get smashed until you either quit or continually invest in figuring out ways to create a game that works against that.
For sure.
Because everything has a flaw, right? With strength comes lack of speed, right? With speed usually comes a little bit of lack of strength. And with size comes slowness. If your limbs are super long, they take more time to get in and out of other positions. So everyone has their advantage and disadvantage. But for the smaller person, if you stick around long enough, you really have to invest in creating your system. So when that was going on for you, what did you feel were those first moments of stride that you started to make where you're oh shit, I'm that wasn't a fluke, right? Like I'm actually starting to figure this out. I'm like getting this, and I can lean into this.
I think honestly, for that it was like my first blue belt tournament as an adult. I was still 17, and I had like one other guy in my division, and I won. And then my coach at the time was like, "Hey man, you should just jump into the adult. Just do the adult division. There's like 8 guys," and I'm like, "Adult, like I'm 17, but and they're stronger than me, whatever, But hey man, they're your same size. Just you got nothing to lose, Just go in there and see what it is." And then I just I triangled the first 2 guys, and then I made it to the final, and I was like, holy shit! Like I'm kind of I guess I'm getting, being able to defend myself and being now I'm able to like put those submissions to work, and I think that was like right there for me. It was like, okay, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this, but yeah, my final didn't go so well, but it is what it is.
If we look at like statistics, the most successful submission in I think mixed martial arts history is rear naked choke. And as a small person, to get a big person's back mitigates a lot of the attack, right? You can become very proximal to them, and then once your arms, I mean, you could get choked by someone 10 years younger and the opposite sex. Once it's in, and like those arteries start to lose blood to the brain, and it works.
Definitely.
So when you're looking at these different submissions, as someone who's smaller, someone who had to create this game over time, getting to the back is challenging. You have crafty ways of doing that. But let's say that you're in this match where it is smaller person versus bigger person. What are some of your go-to setups that you like that start to minimize the gap between you and that size differential?
Well, it honestly depends how big that person is. Because if he's like, I can barely close my guard around him, then we're in trouble if I'm on bottom. I don't want to be on bottom. I want to maybe just try to like bob and weave at the time and then just try to like run to his back. But if it's someone that's obviously bigger, but I can still close my guard around him, then I'm literally just on my back, or like I'm forced to be on my back. That I'm looking for honestly triangles. Like that's like my go-to. Because like I said, my legs are the strongest part of my body, right? And I feel like my legs are so strong, and it's all stronger because I focus on controlling their arms and their head, right? If I'm able to trap one arm, one head, and their head, it's really hard for them to posture. It's hard for them to get out of it, and like I got my crafty ways of being able to, keep them there and making sure that I don't get smashed or I don't get like smashed past. And because I've seen a lot of people, they'll try to give the triangle and then they'll do like that turning to the side and try to pull that arm out and get the pass right away. A lot of people do that. I'm like, if you do that to me, awesome. I'm like, I'll take it, because I've been in that position so many times that it's been like second nature. I'm like, all right, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get my leg over your head and then try to land in side control. So they do it to me, and then it's like they can't get out and like, oh crap, and then they got nothing else to do, and then they're stuck in the triangle. And that's what I've been kind of like I said, being in those positions and figuring out what my partner is doing helps me so much, because now I know it's like, what else you got? It's like they have nothing else. So yeah.
There seems to be this, there's a system for instructing a lot of these techniques, these submissions. So you teach people how to trap an arm in a Kimura or an Americana, or you set up, armbar from closed guard or triangle from closed guard. And they're very systematic. But then what happens for a lot of people is, as soon as you go live, it's like, oh wait, they're not exactly in my closed guard the way that they were in the example, and now I'm panicking and don't know what to do, and then there goes my guard, and now they're passed. So when you're starting to implement a new technique, so let's say that even as I'm sure you do at this point in your game, you're like, oh, I want to try to work this in. There's the confines of like a perfect situation, which every submission has, but never really happen. And then there's the variance that is presented with a live role, a new training partner, a different sized opponent, whatever it is. So when you're trying to solve that problem of like, how do I make this work in multiple situations? Or how do I make this work against multiple sized opponents? What, if any, is your process for doing that?
Honestly, trial and error. Trial and error.
Yeah.
Keep trying. Um, if it's something to where I have a position or like I'm trying something new and I'm having to force it way too much. Like I tell this to my students all the time. If you're having to force something, your partner probably already knows what you're doing, and he's going to be able to defend it. You know what I mean? If you're trying to force something, using way too much strength, one, you're going to get exhausted. You're going to burn out whatever position you're in, your arms, your legs, and two, your partner's going to know what you're doing. So it's always good to have like a plan B, a plan C, and having your backup plans to go to something else and make sure that your partner doesn't know exactly what you're doing. I mean, so for
So
me,
are those actually things like that you think of? So in your head is like, I always have envisioned this, like I should get a big whiteboard and put it in my gym and be like, all right, if I go for armbar and then this, and it's like a family tree of the submission. I never
exactly.
do that because I'm like, my brain's not going to remember that while I'm in
Yeah.
the moment. So how does someone other than time, right? Like you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
How do practitioners start to actually create that? Because to be honest, it's something I wish that I did earlier, and maybe I couldn't have then either. But been doing jiu-jitsu for a little over 5 years, and I feel like just now, like just recently, I started to even think that there's like, oh, I can want B, and I'm going to push on X so that they react this way, and I'm going to get that. But if I had just gone for that, they're going to pull it away or they're going to take it away.
Exactly.
So how can people start to implement this sooner and see the connections of like kind of the chess game of it, the baiting, the switching, the setups,
Yeah.
the tricks, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, like you said, it's like the family tree thing. Everything's connected. Like you can be playing X guard and try to look for a sweep, and then you're like, oh, he just put his hand somewhere where I can easily put my leg through and get a triangle, or he sat back on his butt and his foot is exposed. So it's like a lot of times when going up the ranks, it's like, okay, I'm trying to do this triangle or I'm trying to do whatever submission, but he's doing this to counter. What else or what other options are there for me to be able to get something else? You know what I mean? Or let's say in your mind too, you want to go for that triangle, you want to go for that armbar. Let's see my a good way it is practice your sweeps. What sweeps can I get, and how can I connect them? You know what I mean? Find that journey between that sweep or pass or whatever to the other submission that you want to get. You know what I mean? Because going up the ranks, you can't. Everybody knows the basics, right? Everybody knows the fundamentals. So it's like
Totally.
if you just shoot the triangle, they're gonna know what you're doing. So I feel
Right.
like what develops people's game is knowing those little tricks, knowing those little baits, being able to plant these little seeds of like, oh, hey, take this, like this little, take this, but in reality, I'm gonna do something over here. You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
what makes you like level up and be able to progress. I feel knowing like the tricks, like you said.
It's hard to take that risk as a practitioner. I think it's one of the things I've found that I respect a lot about black belts who've been doing this a long time is you're just willing to be more explorative, right? Like you've proven yourself, so to
Yeah,
speak. You have your career at this point. Like you know where your skill set is. You can tap someone like Clark, and you guys can go as hard as you want to prepare for stuff. So like you have this range, but then you can also explore a lot more. And I feel like one of the challenges when you get started is you're hesitant to explore,
yeah,
because if you explore, you can lose, even though it's not about losing or winning, but it
yeah,
feels that way. And so you end up being like, you get good at one thing or you figure one thing out. And so you silo yourself in that as like
yeah,
the thing you do.
yeah.
And that's fine until someone's just better than that thing. And then you're back to square one instead of
Exactly.
like evolving with the process.
Exactly. I completely agree. If you're just focused on one thing, you can't grow. You know what I mean? You got to be able to explore and see what your game is good at or what positions you're in, because you don't know when you're gonna go against this guy who's a really good passer and he's gonna pass your guard, and he's gonna force you into the bottom side control, and now you're like, oh no, I only have a guard, but now I'm on bottom side control, and what do I do? You know what I mean? So it's like it's got to be, you got to be able to be willing to explore and be able to try new things, because everybody comes in as a white belt, right? They want to come in, they want to show that they got something to prove. They got, they're good. They don't want to get submitted. They don't want to get tapped out. But man, it's gonna happen. Like, it's 100% guaranteed it's gonna happen. Someone's gonna be better than you. And even now, you can take the best person in the room, and they're gonna maybe have an off day or a bad day, but there's always gonna be someone better. Always. I feel like, and that's what I've always had in my mind too. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm good. I know what I'm doing, but there's always gonna be someone better, and I just gotta be the best that I can be. And if I just take someone down and then hold them down and be inside their closed guard, then what did we really learn from that role? Nothing. Right. If I just I'm just holding and not trying to progress, we're trying to you to progress. And I always tell my students this. I'm like, man, you have to be willing to explore and see what works and see what doesn't work. Because if we just, I took him down and then I just held him there, and I was like, yeah, but you just worked on that one takedown that you did. That's it. That's all you did. Yeah. And it's like, and the person on bottom, yeah, he got taken down. He maybe learned what not to do next time on takedown, but now he's just stuck on bottom. So it's and this is why we train. This is why we are able to get better, because we're in the training room, we're in the lab, we're figuring things out, we're experimenting, we're seeing what works with us, seeing what doesn't work for us. So that way, when we go to competition, and especially or like in a street situation, now you know what not to do. You know what I mean? Right. So in a competition, I always tell my students, like, don't be scared to compete, because just think of it as like a one really good training session. That's because what's the difference between you trying to train in your academy than competing? It's just like you and another guy. It's exactly the same thing. I think
a lot of that, it's psychologically.
It's all mental.
That's a really good note as a coach too. Yeah. Like telling your students that is, you don't want to be a pussy. I think is what it comes down to for a lot of people. Like that's how they feel like they're being if they lose. Yeah. And you don't want to sign up for the big competition and then go lose and like disgrace your school and all stuff. But the reality is, like, there are so many people. You're not competing for the world title. No. You're competing at a regional, locally funded jiu-jitsu tournament for people that enjoy jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
Right? If you lose ADCC in the finals, you can be disappointed in yourself. Absolutely. Because at that point, you've worked so freaking hard to get there.
So man, I wouldn't even feel disappointed. I'd love to be in the finals of the ADCC.
or just psyched to be there.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. Like, you could be hard on yourself and it would make sense, because that's like kind of the pinnacle. But the smaller stuff is, there's no shame in losing. In fact, you'll probably learn more. I felt like the first tournament I did, way back when I started, it was like 6 days into my first month. They did like an in-house, and I was like, whatever, I'll try this. Yeah. And just got smashed, absolutely smashed by other, white belts that were also starting. And I was just like more gassed than I had been used to. My arms were all blown up. I was tired. All these things that like you feel in training, but you don't really feel to that degree. Yeah. And you just can appreciate it in the moment. And in that one day, you walk away from it with like, more than you learn in a month, more than you wrap your head around, and it brings a new demeanor. I think that's the coolest thing to watch, is when someone comes back from competing, the way that they train afterwards is a little bit different. Yeah. Like, they're a little more grounded, because you've experienced, like, it would be like if all you ever did was 25-pound dumbbell curls. That's all, the only workout you ever did, right? You never went heavier, you never went lighter, you never did more. You would just have no understanding of the variation of exercise, and then you would get none of the benefit. But then you start to understand these peaks and thresholds, and like, it changes the individual a lot. When you're looking at students, and you have, new students that come in all the time, I'm sure you've seen hundreds of people quit jiu-jitsu for whatever reasons, valid or invalid, that they have. Yeah. In your eyes, what are like characteristics that you'll notice really early on in a student, and you're like, that is what we're looking for. This person, they get it, and they're going to be here for a long time?
Well, I feel like it's hard to look for that, and like, because everyone has their own goals, and this is what I've actually learned recently. It's like, oh, you don't train jiu-jitsu? Like, why not? Like, or you do this as a hobby, but you don't compete? Why? Or like, you don't want to train jiu-jitsu every day? Like, why? Like, it was always, for me, like I've had to like adapt to where, because me, I've only had my life, right? Well, I was like, oh no, I'm training every day. You know, I'm not gonna go out
Right.
party. I'm just gonna train because I want to get better at jiu-jitsu. That's what my mentality was. And then I have like these kids or like these teenagers that like come up to me like, hey, like I'm gonna like, oh, I'll see you tomorrow. I was like, no, I have a dinner to go to or a party. I'm like, what? Like, no, like we have training, we gotta train. And like this is something that I like recently was like, hey, bro, like not everyone has that jiu-jitsu lifestyle, and I'm like, oh, man, you're right, but it sucks, you know. And then, or like I see someone that is really talented, and I'm like, dude, like please just keep coming. Like I know you pick it up so quick, and this person is just it's like he wakes up and he's just like, you know, does whatever I showed him and like easily in the next round. It's like you can
Yeah.
see it, and I'm like, come on, let's train more. Let's do more. It's like, I'm gonna go, you know, hang out with my friends. I'm like, what are you doing? Like it was so like I would have never done that. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like, but I gotta like it just changes. So it's hard for me to it's like kind of find a balance of between everybody. You know, there's some people that they just want to come in and you know get a good workout in, or some people want to come in and just as a hobby just learn what to do or to have learn some self defense or so it's you gotta really I gotta ask my students like, hey, what are your goals in jiu-jitsu? Like, what do you want to do? Like, oh, I want to do this. And it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'll support you 100%. Like, it's what I'm here for, right? But a lot of people, I feel like they tend to maybe they start and then they have like that short term goal to where like, oh, or they think about like, this is like the newest one for me is like, oh, I just want my blue belt. I'm like, dude, like, you know, that's kind of it's not the point, man. Like, you know, just gotta
No.
keep on going and just, you know, just have this in like forever because this is going to be with you forever. You know, if you want a blue belt, I'll give it to you one right now. You know, and that's it. But it's
It's one of the they say it like in the fitness industry, well, in personal training, you know, what I've done for my career, like there's a saying, you can't want it better or you can't want it more than your client. You know, like sometimes there's limits. You know, you as a coach get excited because you see you're like, oh man, like your movement patterns and your ability to pick things up, like you have all the pieces to the puzzle. Your weight loss or strength or whatever goal is so close. We just got to get you there. And sometimes the reality is that like that's not what people want. And
yeah,
if you don't do a good job as a coach, like you just said, of clarifying, like, hey, why are you here? It's like, oh, you're trying to do something healthy for yourself twice a week. That's all you want. Cool. I fully support that.
yeah,
Some people are like, hey, I want to lose 100 pounds and like, I will be here every single day that you tell me. I will eat how you think is best to eat, you know, and you're like, cool, awesome. I support you in that. But you can't want the other person to do that person's goal and vice versa. And it's
yeah,
hard because you see potential.
yeah,
And when you see potential, you want to like foster it, right? Because that's how you think. You know,
yeah,
I was just say I like went to a jiu-jitsu academy and I was like, dope, I'm going to do this for like the rest of my life. It was like that, you know, it's like,
yeah,
I'll do this as much as I can forever.
yeah,
There was no doubt, but not everyone has that experience. But one thing I was talking to Greg Souders about this the week before last on his whole ecological approach. And one thing he was saying that really pissed people off online was this, and I understood what he meant. It came off a little different, but he was talking about he hates the word hobbyist, that people call themselves hobbyists, because it accepts mediocrity in what they're doing. Like they go, oh, well, you know, I'm just a hobbyist. I'm just here to do it 2 days a week. And he's like, why would you not want to become the best that you possibly can? Like get that word out of your head. And listening to it back and thinking about it, like I get what he was saying, you know, like if you come in, even if you only do this as a hobby because you have a family and a job and businesses going on and all these demands, the day that when you step on the mat, bring 100% of yourself and intend to get better to the best ability that you can.
yeah,
And then the frequency with which that happens is just a product of your lifestyle. But when you think of yourself as like just a hobbyist, it's like when things get tough, you're just a hobbyist. You know, when you got to do an extra round of stand up, you're just a hobbyist. So like, I should probably back off.
It's like
And I
it's
kind
like
of
your
like
safety
that.
net, right? It's like your safety net. Like,
Totally.
yeah,
From a mentality standpoint. So
yeah,
like, maybe not every student that comes in the door has Brandon Walensky intentions of being a champion and like sticking to it. But at least every student who comes in the door is going to work as hard as they can for their teammates and for the other people. And I just kind of
for
like
sure.
that. Like, I like that approach.
For sure. And I feel like, man, if you, I feel like everybody is competitive in like in some sort of way, right? And playing board games or whatever. Everybody wants to win. Nobody wants to lose, you know. So it's like if they're there and they're training, they're gonna want to do their best. They want to make sure that okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to not get past or whatever the situation is. So it's like it's I've never seen someone that comes to training and be like, nah, I'm not training. I'm just gonna, you know, or just like laying there some like a 5-year-old would, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, just playing around, you know, messing around. But so yeah, I get it. It's there's always gonna be some certain people that want it but have different goals. You know what I mean?
I think it's one of the things that makes jujitsu so beautiful is that it forces you to be honest with yourself.
Yeah,
And no one else can have that conversation. Only you can have that one conversation with yourself where you go, I gave up in that last round. You know, like only you know that. No one else will know.
yeah,
They'll never ask you, and you never tell them or whatever. But like, you know, because you're training,
yeah,
and you know when you had 10% to give and you gave 5 because it was a tough weekend or whatever it is. Like, I feel like that's my biggest battle as a practitioner is like, I know those days where I could have been giving more of myself. And it's hard to admit that, especially when it's something you love to do so much, but that's part of it. It's
yeah,
going to challenge who you are. It's going to challenge the person that you think you are and bend and mold that in so many different ways.
yeah, for sure.
What was, when you look back to your like kind of development through this whole process, what was the initial connection with Clark and how did that just become such like a dynamic relationship for learning and also just becoming better? Because it seems like, I don't know you both personally in that way, but it seems like you guys bring a lot of competitiveness out of each other and a skill level and development.
Honestly, I think it's because of what we both wanted in our goals. We had similar goals. You know, what he was doing with like competing, training full time. You know, being the best that he can be. That's exactly what I wanted too. And I think from that we like just connected because of our similar goals. You know what I mean? And obviously, he's a super cool dude, and we just got along really well. And we were like, dude, like this train, like, what do you want to do with your life? And like, oh, I just want to do what you're doing with your life. He was like, oh, okay. And then he pretty much just like took me under his wing. I'm like, dude, let's, you know, would tell me where to go, tell me what time to be, and I would be there. And because I feel like we saw each other with like the similar and same goals, and we just hit it off. And now we're just like, I think what, like 12 years later, we're
Almost.
still homies. Yeah. So it's like, and it's cool to see because when I started, I didn't have when I started jiu-jitsu, I wasn't with Clark. I was someone else, and I never had that like relationship with anybody. Like nobody
Yeah.
had that like goal or like that desire that I wanted. I was like, man, like because I remember when I first started, I met like a whole bunch of black belts, and I was like starting to see like, oh, people make money off this. They travel, they teach seminars. Like, what is this? What's going on? Like, how, you know? And I'm like, I just was like so drawn into it, and I would see them in magazines. Like, holy shit, you're famous. What is this? This is awesome, you know? And like the first week or two, like that's I like knew, boom, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what forever. Like I'm there, you know. And I didn't have that someone or that connection with anybody. And I was just like, man. And then I met Clark, and then it was just like, boom, this is what I needed. This is what I need. And Clark was able to like help me and mold me into the athlete that I'm today. You know.
What was the decision like to go and open up your own school? So how does that happen in that kind of setting where, you know, you're under Clark's banner? Obviously, you guys are good friends. You're intense training partners.
Yeah.
You look up to him, and then it gets to a point where it's kind of like, what do you do? So how did you decide to do that? And what was the conversation like with your mentor?
So because Clark always knew, like, hey, like this is my life, Jiu-Jitsu has given me everything that I have today, and I want to keep doing it forever. And like, I like teaching. So when I was like a brown belt, I started teaching, for him and being at his academy and teaching like fundamental classes or kids classes, and then I got my black belt, and it was always a goal of mine, like even in the beginning. And it's crazy to think about, and I've like reflected on this before. Every single goal that I've like set out in jiu-jitsu, like it's come true, and it's a
Do you wish you set them higher?
maybe, but it's like it's like every single goal that I've done, it's like I've done them. Like obviously, yeah,
Yeah.
the biggest goal, maybe I didn't do it, but it's like a black belt adult world champion. But it's like there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's like I understand that if I'm not that, I'm like the best that I can be, and I'm like happy and
Yeah.
satisfied where I'm at today. So it's like, and everything that I've done, man, like I've wanted to travel to do seminars. I've done it. Been able to compete as much as I can. I've won Noki Worlds at brown belt twice, and then the long haul, the long goal was like to open up my academy. And when I became a black belt, and I was like, deciding, like it was like 2020, and actually opened up a month before COVID hit. So that was,
No way.
yeah, man, a month before. So and it was crazy because I was in Indonesia
Damn.
in January of 2020 because I had an affiliate out there. So I was doing a seminar out there, and then I came back, and the next day, like January 25th, I came back the 24th, and on the 25th we did like our grand opening, ceremony. We opened up, and then a month later, COVID hit, and then boom, everything had to close down. So I was like,
What did you do?
well, luckily my property manager was like, hey, like, we don't know what we're doing, but if you want to stay on the lease, you can stay, and then you just have to like pay the rest when we do open up back up. So like
Right.
luckily, my students were very supportive, and luckily I was able to get through it. But yeah, it was definitely scary, man. Like it was the first time in ever that I've started jiu-jitsu that I had to stop training, which was like
Wow.
it was crazy. And but luckily I was able to get through it. The support of my family and my friends and my students, we were able to push through. It was good.
That was one interesting experience because I was a trainer at Equinox in Santa Monica, and I was going to a jiu-jitsu school in Santa Monica when that happened. I was actually overseas when COVID broke out too because I was in Costa Rica
Oh man.
leading like this surf fitness trip, and I came back. People were like chatting about it in the water, and I was like, "What?" It was like this crazy virus, and then I got back and like our doors shut, and so I got this unique view of two industries that are somewhat adjacent.
Uh-huh.
One being fitness and training, and one being sports and athleticism via jujitsu. And I saw how two different communities handled it entirely. The training industry went very individualistic. People with their clients went and they went distant, away from the gym, right? Because you
Yeah.
physically couldn't be there.
Yeah.
The jiu-jitsu community, at least in my experience, support like super supported itself. It was really cool to see. Like we were doing, our academy shut in Santa Monica was super strict, but like I was doing some fitness workouts for the students via Zoom, and then our instructor, or the professor, was doing like guided video techniques and stuff you can do at home. This didn't go on for a super long time because eventually I think people lost interest in the virtual component.
Hmm.
But it was just kind of cool to see that. Like it's a really cool community of people that really want to see the best like happen for other people.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely for sure. And it's crazy to think about, and COVID and how everything went down, but I feel like it was like 3 or 4 months. Everyone was like, "Man, this is not that serious, dude. Let's just go back to train," And then everybody
Right.
just started coming back and all that. But no, I was definitely supported, and my students definitely were supportive, and I just completely grateful. And I feel like everybody too. Like I think there was a couple academies that closed down, but luckily, like not too many. Clark was still open, and everybody was like super supportive, and we were like doing like those videos online, or like reels, or
Yep.
like on live, and it would just be, I remember it would just be me, Clark, and I think Sinistro would come in every once in a while. And we would like just, honestly, it would just be us messing around, but we would just be doing jiu-jitsu, you know. And people would be asking techniques and stuff. And it was definitely a weird time. Definitely super, because it's not what we were used to at all. You know, we're used to having the mats packed and being able to train with whoever and do whatever we wanted. And now we're like, oh, we can't train because of this virus and all this stuff. So, but we're past that, which is good.
Yeah, when you think about your time and the travel that you've done with jiu-jitsu, did you ever think that this was going to bring you all over the world? I mean, how incredible is that?
Oh, I had no idea, honestly, but I was like, man, like in the back of my mind, I always wanted to do that, but I was like, man, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, then you know, it is what it is. But I was able to travel everywhere, being under Clark. Everybody, like, obviously who knew Clark was like, hey, who's this Brandon guy? I was like, oh, my student, whatever. And then they would like start to like, you know, slowly building like my reputation, like the word of mouth was just like getting everywhere. And it's like, hey, or this guy is in Australia, like, hey, like somewhere like around there would be like, oh, I want him in my academy too, you know. So
right.
It was awesome, man. As soon as like I would like tell people that I was going somewhere, like 3-4 different people would be like, yo, come here too. And honestly, it's kind of crazy to think about because everywhere I would go to, they're all strangers, only other than
totally
other than jiu-jitsu, right? That's the only thing we have in common that I know of is like, oh, it's just jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, shit, dude, I have to go to this random person's place. I'm staying in there on their couch or their house or whatever. I'm like, but I'm there. But I'm like, luckily, I'm like, even my parents would tell me like, dude, who is this guy? I don't know, but he's flying me out to so-and-so and I'm going to go and just do jiu-jitsu. And it's like, and then
so wild.
It's so crazy.
I had, you've been up to Mammoth?
I'm sorry?
Before. You've been up to Mammoth?
I think I've been snowboarding there like once or twice. Yeah.
So in the town right before is called Bishop. It's like you go through Bishop and it's like 40 minutes up to Mammoth. But Bishop has this little, I think it's called High Sierra Jiu Jitsu Academy or something. But it's like right on the main street. You wouldn't know it's there if you walk by because they have the front boarded up.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was like a COVID thing. But I was going up to Mammoth one weekend, and to break up the drive, I was like, this is dope. I'll pull over and I'll like train some jiu-jitsu with these random people, and then I'll go up to Mammoth. And when I was in there training, it was like a crazy snowstorm outside. So like they were going to shut the road from Bishop to Mammoth, which it traps everyone in both places because the roads get too dangerous.
Yeah.
And at the end of the rolling, whatever, one guy, he's like, hey, you said you were going up to Mammoth, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, he was a California Highway Patrol officer who trained there. And he's like, let me call up and like see. So he gets on his phone. He's like calling the police dispatch, like inside dude, getting me the lowdown on the roads. And he's like helping me map out. And then someone else was like, oh, damn, you're going up to Mammoth. He's like, hey, man, just so you know, like if you get stuck here, like we all got couches. And everyone kind of looked over. And it was like 6 people looked at me like you're good. If you get stuck here, you're good. And I was like, damn, dude, this is really cool. I'm up here from San Diego. I've never met these people in my life, right?
Yeah.
All we did was
Roll.
put in effort, sweat, and train. And at the other end of that, like what other situations could you go into, spend 45 minutes with people, and then be like, yo, Brandon, you know what? If you're stuck here, you can have a place to sleep on.
Dude.
You know, usually people would be like, I don't fucking know that guy.
No, definitely not at all. Nobody would ever. You go to like to Walmart or something. Hey, my car broke down. I was like, who cares, dude?
Or like you go play like a pickup soccer game. No one at the end of a competitive soccer match would be like, hey man, just so you know, if you're stuck down here, like you can stay at our house. They'd be like, hey, if you're stuck down here, we're gonna rob you.
Pretty much, man. No, that's another beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu that I feel like not a lot of people talk about. It's the brotherhood and like how close you get with someone right after you just roll with them. You know what I mean? It's like no language. Even like when I've traveled, obviously there's always a language barrier, and it's like I don't know what they're saying, or they don't know what I'm saying, but we have like that bond, or like that jiu-jitsu bond, or that trust that we can just be like, oh yeah, I trust this person. Because if you think about it, you have to trust them with your life, man. Like they have they have you in a choke, and it's like, okay, it's up to them to let go or not, you know, or like, hey, I'm choking you, I could easily kill you. Your life is in my hands, and
Yo, isn't that, dude? I was thinking. I'm so glad you brought this up. Isn't that wild when you actually think about it?
yeah.
Like anyone that you train with, where they've got you in a spot, they could kill you.
Oh, but
Like if someone
I've
if
thought about
someone
it.
RNC'd you and they
Yeah,
didn't let up, and
yeah.
you tapped and you went to sleep and they didn't let up,
You
they
did.
would kill you.
Yeah, yeah, you did. Yeah, dude. I've thought it's so crazy because I think about it all the time. I'm like, man, this guy can like, or like, if I have someone's like, dude, if I decide not to let go, what's gonna happen? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or some random person I'm training, like I go cross train somewhere and they get me in a choke, and it's like I'm tapping, and it's like they're not letting go. Like it could easily, you know, yeah, but we're literally trusting everybody else with our lives, or like, you know, if they have a choke,
Everywhere.
everywhere. So it's just like, oh, okay, I guess this is what it is. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. Then I guess, you know. But no, it's so crazy to think about. It's like it's scary because what if someone is having a bad day or having, you know, something's happening, and they don't want to let go, and it's like, bro, like it's scary to think about, but I'm so glad that it hasn't ever, especially in my academy, it's never come to that, you know. So I'm just like, everybody like respects each other, everybody, you know, knows what it is, and we all just become super close right off the bat.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, I guess there's like obviously the legal side, of course, right? The
Yeah,
legal repercussions, but it is striking that across 7 continents and all these different languages, you know, you can be in Bali, rolling in Canggu, or you can be in Ireland at SBG, or you can be in New York at Henzo's, like wherever you are, this tap system works. It's
yeah,
a perfect, it works everywhere in the world unanimously, and everyone abides by it from brand new to the highest skill level.
yeah,
And that's wild to be able to trust people on that level. It really does. I mean, it breaks down a lot of barriers, like you alluded to earlier, that like you just get done with these, you get done training and you've made up so much time. It's weird. Like I was in Kauai. Have you trained out in Kauai
no,
at
no,
Longman? It's like a, so it's a Gracie Humaita affiliate of this guy Bruno Ewald, and sponsored like Ruka Gym, but him and his son teach there. And I was there for a wedding and just rolled in, and like, dude, by the end of it, I literally felt like I had 40 like super close friends who live in Kauai, that if I was like, yo, I got an hour to surf tomorrow, but I don't know any of the spots, like they would show you spots that they would hope that no other people on the island found. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's just dope. It's all from jiu-jitsu because you showed up and you were willing to check it all and like be a good training partner,
yeah.
and everyone respects that.
Yeah, and obviously there's gonna be those guys that are like not good training partners, and they're just like, this guy's a little questionable, or he's just here to hurt me. Then they're like, it kind of like really speaks like your personality and like who you are just from that role. You know, you can tell what kind of person
Yeah.
that is just from the role, and they don't even they proved it to you from the role. Like,
Right.
because one person can say something, but then you're like, oh, he's acting or doing something else. And
So do you, when you get drop-ins and stuff, what's your kind of mental checklist when you're welcoming someone into your gym who's visiting?
just honestly treat them however, if they're anybody else, you know, they're not different than anybody. They're coming in, we welcome them, you know, we say what's up, we everything's good, and then when we start to roll, it's like I'm never, if I roll with someone new, it's always like respectful, you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm never gonna go out there and like hurt someone, or try to like beat them up, you know. It's always like that, like respect, like give and take, you know. I'm giving them however much they give me, like, and that's
right.
all. It's how honestly it should be, because then we like slowly start to grow, or like, you know. But if it's like, if he comes at me like, oh shit, like this guy's about to like crush me or hurt me, or like, you know, then I'm like, all right, I gotta settle you down and like humble you a little bit, maybe, you know. But if they're like really really
Slice
good,
of that humble pie.
yeah, exactly. Or if they're really good and they do like destroy me or whatever, then it is what it is, you know. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I have my, if anything were to happen like that, like, oh, this guy like hurt me, or like he's, you know, he's really good, but he's like breaking my arm or something, then obviously I feel like all my students would just jump on the guy and like stop it,
Right.
you know. And then that's another thing too. I think we like, we don't do because we know that we're in a room with a bunch of people that trust each other, and if one person does something, malicious or wrong,
Yep.
the whole academy would be there to just immediately stop it, or like, hey, like that was not cool, like get out, anything like that. And I feel like it makes it safer.
It's kind of like it's like a perfect system, like a perfect environment of
Yeah,
checks and balances that just like it works. It's so cool.
yeah,
When you're in your like different competitions that you've been doing, and you've done EBI, you've done Metamoris, you've competed all over the world, IBJJF. What do you think is like in terms of competition? I think it's important to some degree to delineate between competition jujitsu and jujitsu for like developing the art form and the understanding and like being a lifelong practitioner, right? You can, both those people can exist in the same academy and achieve great results. But if we focus a little bit more on like the competitive side, which you've been very successful in, where do these different promotions hold meaning for you? Like between ADCC, IBJJF, EBI, Metamoris, Quintet, like what should we respect the most as practitioners, as fans, when you're looking to these different promotions?
well, at the end of the day, it's all jiu-jitsu, right? It's all jiu-jitsu. It's all together. They're all the same. We want to be that. Everybody wants to be. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to do well. But honestly, it depends on what that person wants, right? Because right now there's the whole thing of like gi and no gi jiu-jitsu. It's like I feel like it's been split up so much to where like gi is like traditional. It's respectful and trying to win whatever. And IBJF is obviously there. It's like the prestigious. You win an IBJF tournament, you're the guy, right? You're the man. You won it all. And fucking competition there is insanely high. And then you go to Nogi, and then you get like I don't know, or some like you said, EBI, ADCC, all these prestigious Nogi tournaments, and it's like I feel like they're two totally different worlds, because one of them is like the gi, respectful, and honestly, like I don't know if I'm gonna get shit for this or not, but ADCC is becoming to where like it's it's becoming so disrespectful, bro. Like it's becoming like who can beat up that other person, and I feel like it's becoming more like of a like an MMA vibe, like
Yeah.
go in there, like I don't care who you are, I'm gonna mess you up, and like shit talking, showboating, and all this like disrespectful stuff. It's like it kind of sucks to see, because there's a lot of kids that are like growing up to that, and they're like, oh, I should be like that guy, or like I should be doing what that person's doing. A couple like weeks ago, I like posted a video on my Instagram, and it was like of this kid just full on elbowing another kid at this ADCC
I
Open.
saw that,
Have you
dude.
seen it? You
Saw
saw
that.
it? And it just sucks to see, because like why did he do that? Was it because he was, I don't know the context of it, but it's like, why did he do that? Is it because he was losing? Is it because he was getting frustrated because he couldn't open the guy's guard? Like why did it come down to that? Like it's so many, there's so many things can happen. Obviously, too, that could have happened in a gi tournament. That could have happened in a IBJ tournament, right? But it's like you're starting to see it more and more in the nogi scene, and like the
Right.
nogi, and like and for me, it's like it sucks to see, because to me it's still a martial art. It's still like the beauty of like the respect, and like the being like humble, and just being like a super cool guy, and like, and then you see like the nogi side, and it's like, shit, dude, this guy, like it's just all about like shit talking, and all about like who's gonna beat who up, and then people get hurt, people get, and it sucks to see, man, honestly.
It's interesting. I think a lot about this because from a marketing perspective, there's there's just tried and true ways that fights sell, right? Like if you look at the statistics of the UFC and like pay-per-view sales, and you take someone like Connor, you look at Connor's press conference run and his build-up run. I mean, the guy's got a black belt in trash talk. He's just off the cuff, super lucid. He's fluid. He gets under your skin. He does all this stuff, and it draws you in, right? So when you look at the pinnacle of combat sports. That's how they're making the most money, creating the careers for themselves, selling the most butts and seats, all this kind of stuff. And so from the trickle down effect, you get down to the regional no-gi level, and everyone has Instagram now. So to some degree, you're your own promoter. And if you have any hopes of doing this long term, you kind of have to embody that until you get to a level where someone else can do your promotion for you. And so the way that we respond, what sells? And it's like that brashness sells.
Yeah.
But I think to your question, it's like, why did this kid elbow the other kid? It's a great question. Was it because he lost his temper? Maybe a combination of that, and that's kind of the example, is like right on that line of thinking that you're an MMA fighter, which is, I think that this is kind of where things fall apart. Like, jiu-jitsu is not mixed martial arts. It does not involve striking. So the machismo that comes along with striking and knocking people out cold, which is impressive and super scary, should be reserved for that part of combat sports, because those are the guys taking that risk.
Exactly.
When you're a professional jiu-jitsu grappler, you have chosen to not take the risks that the mixed martial artists take, which is the head trauma, the concussions, all that. You could, the academies are close, right? You could just be training MMA, but you're choosing not to. So don't pretend like you are, because it gets confusing down line, although it sells. But I think, there are good examples of people that I think of, like Andrew Tackett, right? Super aggressive, wild, fantastic in tournaments, but he's like a nice kid. And when they interview him afterwards, he's nice and he smiles. And he's got good things to say about his opponents and how hard they worked.
Yeah.
You also got guys like Andy Varela who showcase like slapping opponents hard in the face in the buildup. So you get this like teeter-totter of the two things. My question to you is, with both of those existing, is it a net positive for jiu-jitsu, or do you think it's a net negative?
Man, it's so hard to say, because what is, it's like also too what I think about, right? Like what is gonna like make people like click, right? Like the clickbait, right? What's gonna make people watch these videos? It's like, oh, this guy, like, one person, he's really nice, he has really good jiu-jitsu, he's good, But then we got this other guy. We all love the drama, right? He's like stirring up drama, he has really good jiu-jitsu, and he is a trash talker. He freaking stirs up drama, and bro, we're all humans. We all love the drama. We all like to see the car accidents at the side of the roads. We all want to see what happens and stuff. But and at the end of the day, it's like I feel like people are doing this to get those views, to get those like as much popularity as possible. Like, don't get me wrong. Like all these guys in no-gi are like super good at jiu-jitsu, but I feel like it's not needed. The trash talking and the being the bad boy or whatever, who can whoop whose ass or whatever. But and like you said, it's what sells, right? It's like what sells. It's like what's people want to see. People want to see that drama and that like you've seen. And I feel like, because you think about it, and like judo, for example, judo is not as popular as jiu-jitsu, and I'm like I start sometimes think why that is. Because they're super respectful, bro. They have no like toleration for any of that like trash talking, or like if you're on the mats being just rude, they're like, boom, you're done, get out of here, But it's not as popular, Right. And you see jiu-jitsu, and it's like now it's becoming a whole mainstream thing of people. Everyone knows what it is now, and because of that, because I feel like it's so close to MMA. That all the no-gi scene, it's too close to MMA. Like the no-gi, the shirts off, the sweat, the grappling, the stuff is just like only thing that they're taking out is the striking. That's it.
Right.
So
yeah, and there's even more, Jason. I mean, like the karate combat with Aljamain and Maori kid, what's his name? Jason, forget his last name, but they just fought yesterday, and like, dude, it's Aljamain.
Yeah.
but they're doing a grappling match, a submission grappling match, right? So
Yeah.
they're getting these crossover personalities. I think it's a challenge, right? Because the eyes on it, the exposure is great. I mean, even like what Craig Jones is doing with CJI is
Yeah.
it's comical and it's a funny shtick and all this stuff. But like at the end of the day, there's an athlete who's a grappler who's going to walk away from one event and they're going to win $1 million.
Yeah.
And after tax, maybe it's less than that. But dude, that's like
insane.
for that grappler, that's a potentially life-changing outcome
For sure.
that for the history of grappling has never existed.
For sure.
So whether he's thrown middle fingers up to Mo and ADC or not, it doesn't matter. This is a pivotal moment in grappling. And what it's going to do with exposure is bring more kids into the bottom. Kids are going to get better as they turn into teens and adults, and the sport grows. But I think there's a toxicity to it that might be good, might be bad. I'm honestly not like completely sold if it's one way or the other.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is the individual. And that, I think, is where people like yourself have such a powerful role, because you're going to field a lot of these new bodies into jiu-jitsu. And so you have the opportunity to say, hey, like, we're going to train hard as hell, but we're going to respect our opponent. You know, whatever that conversation might be from a coach.
Yeah.
But I think that there's like, you know, you guys bear the cross, so to speak, of maintaining the philosophy of martial arts and that code of ethics that, like, I'm sure, you know, Clark received from his family down the line. Dude, Hickson was a certified killer, but look at the guy. He's upheld a level. Do you think Colby Covington's going to be respected the way Hickson is when Colby's 75, 80?
Exactly.
No, dude.
Yeah.
Because you sell your soul to the devil for a couple clicks in promotion.
Yeah.
So it's
gonna, yeah, you think about it too, man. You like, you have, you know, if you're a parent, I'm not a parent, but I'm just saying, like, in general, if you're a parent and you take this kid or your kid to no-gi place, and it reeks of weed, the instructor is like high and he's like bashing all these little kids, it's like, bro, you don't want your kids to go there, right? You want to make your kids like feel secure and safe and actually like be respectful and be better. Well, that's what I would think. You know, I would want my kids to do that. You know, and then you go to like a proper jiu-jitsu academy. It's like teacher's, you know, respectful. He's, you know, has good manners. You know, is teaching, you know, kids well. Like, dude, like, for sure, I want that. You know, and it's like, I feel like these kids now are seeing all that into like the Instagram, the shit talking. It's like, bro, those are like grown ass men. Those are grown ass adults. You know what I mean? You're not allowed to do that. You know what I mean?
We don't have kids yet, but dude, if just as a person, if I saw my son or daughter treat another kid that way, we'd have a serious conversation.
That's what I'm saying.
What might be on the line is whether or not they're going to be allowed to continue doing that thing. Not because of anything other than the fact that, like, we're going to treat people with respect, period.
Yeah.
And you can be a demon on the mats and you can dominate everyone.
Yeah.
But you're going to get up and you're going to shake their hand and you're going to pull them up off the mat every single time.
Yeah.
Period.
There's a way, because, man, you see like Marcelo Garcia, you see Cobrinha, you see all these high level guys that are like so good, and they will destroy a lot of people, you know, but bro, they're so nice, they're so, you know, humble, they're so grounded, and it's like, bro, it's awesome to see, you know. They still got great jiu-jitsu. They're one of the best grapplers in the world, and they're so humble and nice. And then you see, like, you know, you see the other side of it, and it's like, dude, like, at the end of the day, like, they want to see you do bad, I feel. You know what I mean? They want to see you, like, not progress. And it's like, it kind of sucks, you know?
Do you think that there's any possibility of gi jiu-jitsu getting this sort of boost to catch up to no gi jiu-jitsu in terms of like platform promotion, you know, stream time, stuff like that, to where you could actually create like a rule set or spectacle where people were really stoked on it?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's hard to see, because the numbers, it's proven, you know, what sells and what clicks. It's like the no-gi, but I feel like it's so close to MMA and like the drama, and it sucks to see. And man, I was totally gonna say something. I totally forgot.
About gi jiu-jitsu?
Just about like shit.
So I don't think gi jiu-jitsu is going anywhere. I think
No.
that it stays. And I think that the two, I mean, I personally I love both so much. I think that they're so cool in different ways and they teach you a lot about the other. Like I've learned more about body awareness and weight distribution from the quick scrambles of no gi. And I've learned a lot more about, being tactical and thoughtful from gi that I didn't learn in no gi. So training the two interchangeably constantly,
Yeah.
I think it's just good jujitsu health. Like it's just good to do both. Like
Yeah.
you're going to learn something from each.
Yeah. I feel like if Nogi's still around, Gi can never die. You know what I mean? I like
Right.
because they go hand in hand so well, and then you get like the top. And it's funny, I had this conversation. Someone asked me like, "Hey, who do you think is better at jiu-jitsu? A guy that only does no gi or only does gi?" And it's like,
That's a good question.
for me, I already know the answer. It's like, bro, it's a gi jiu-jitsu for sure, like 100%. Because you get someone in the gi that has only trained in the gi forever, and you switch them to no gi. Yeah, maybe a really good no gi guy would be able to, beat him or whatever. But it's like, dude, at the end of the day, who has more technique? I feel like definitely
Totally.
the guy in the gi is way more technical because you see the gi, you have all your grips. There's a lot more going on in gi than in no gi. In no gi, you can muscle out of things, you can slip out of things, you can get lucky, you can anything can happen in no gi. I feel, and then you put someone in no gi and you put a gi on them, they're gonna be like, what the heck is this thing? Like, let go of me, and they're not gonna be able to know what to do. You know
I
what I
always
mean?
get frustrated. It's
Oh,
it's funny when you train with somebody who only does no-gi and they're like, these fucking stupid grips are so dumb. And it's like, well,
yeah, and
are they
it's like,
dumb or are you just really
yeah.
bad at breaking them?
But like you said, they definitely do go hand in hand because if you do the gi, and you do a really good job of like escaping positions or escaping submissions, and you go into no gi, it's gonna be easy. You're gonna be able to easily be able to get out of any situation because no one can hold you. You know what I mean? You're gonna slip out of things and be like, oh man, this is easy. And then in no gi, same thing for the no gi. If you do no gi and you're able to submit and get people in positions in no gi, bro, you put them in the gi, you're gonna for sure get any position or submission that you want because you actually have a grip. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just
And I mean, this is to beat a dead horse, but the whole self-defense argument that people make, I think, is silly because they go, it's useless because no one walks around wearing a gi. And I'm like, dude, no one, well, unless they got some problems, no one's walking around in compression spats either.
yeah,
It's a mix. So
yeah,
it's like what you want in a situation like that, I would hope, is that you want to be able to create distance from the person attacking you or getting in your face
yeah,
and leave.
yeah,
And the ability to do that, or if in the event that they grab you and you end up on the ground or whatever, training both will help you do that.
yeah,
It's not like you're going to get attacked and then you're going to be like, oh, sick, I'm going to throw, a Darce from Turtle
yeah,
because the guy's wearing a spandex shirt.
yeah.
It's just stupid. So
No, and if you think
someone's got a jacket on, dude. Like Keenan Cornelius, they did all those awesome videos where they did like street jujitsu, but they were wearing like sweatshirts or pants or stuff like that. It transfers, dude. You
yeah,
grab someone's collar of their jacket and the elbow of their jacket,
you're gonna go
and they
flying.
don't train jujitsu.
Yeah,
You're telling me you're not going to literally do whatever the hell you want with that
yeah,
person?
exactly. No, it's like and like the gi too. If you train in the gi, you're training everything, including what you can learn in no gi, right? But if you just do no gi, you can't learn lasso, you can't learn spider. You know what I mean? It's like so. I feel like you learn so much more in no gi in gi that you can easily translate it to no gi.
What do you feel like does not translate in your personal game? What does not translate from gi? Obviously the grips, but like in terms of your strategy or your setup for submissions, what do you lose?
I feel like in nogi, I tend to prefer to be on the top, like on the top game, because I feel like if you're on top, you can control the situation a lot easier, and nobody can grab you. If I'm on bottom guarding, I feel so like I have no grips, I can't pull them down, and where I want them to be like close to me and being able to like set up my traps and stuff. So I feel like it switches my game from gi to nogi. It switches because I prefer to be on top in nogi, and I just feel like that's what it is. Like if you're on bottom, it's so hard to pull them in to your guard or where you want
Yeah.
them to be. Then obviously in gi. So I feel like that like it's the main thing. The main thing is those grips, man. Those grips are when you're in the gi and you're playing on bottom. It's a lot easier than in the gi than no gi.
How do you mitigate that size differential in no gi? Going back to what we were saying earlier, being a smaller person and having to develop that technique over time. Like when you're trained in no gi and someone's bigger than you, it's hard to hold them down. So like, what
Yeah.
are you using to advance your game in that setting?
Well, if I am forced to be on bottom, I always like I said, I always have the my gi to help me out with like my frames, making sure they don't get too close to me, they don't get too heavy, and I can obviously do pretty well on bottom in no gi. But if I'm on top, it's the scrambles, man, the scrambles and the back takes. Because me, I've always told everybody else, like I told them, like man, if I fight my strength versus your strength, you're gonna beat me every time. So I have to be faster. I have to be quicker. I have to be able to keep you on your toes until I get to the position that I want. So it's pretty much like all that I ever do when I'm going against a bigger guy. I have to be faster. I have to be quicker and making sure that I get my positions that I want instead of just settling down and letting the guy do whatever he wants. Because then if I'm just framing there and I'm like, man, I'm going to gas out, I'm going to this guy's just going to crush me.
Right. Well, a couple more questions here, kind of rapid fire. Who wins, East Coast Jiu Jitsu or West Coast Jiu Jitsu?
Are the Brazilians in there or what? Are there like,
Eh, yeah, they are.
I think West Coast, man. West
Hell
Coast.
yeah.
West Coast for
Uh,
sure.
well, Brandon, it's been awesome. Kind of goofy at the end there because that's fun to do. But
No, it's
I
good.
really appreciate you taking the time, man. It's cool to hear you talk about jujitsu really from a coach's perspective, like someone who's thinking about this beyond just technique of the day kind of stuff. Really thinking about the athletes, thinking about the students, their development,
Yeah.
and how to keep a lot of what I think is what makes jujitsu so cool, which is that it
Yeah.
develops you as a person. But it appears as though we are definitely going to be faced with some choices as practitioners in the future of like what that person is going to look like. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your mindset and everything that you're doing to keep it true to the core.
Yeah, no, and like I said, man, like at the end of the day, whenever we move on from this life, what's passed on from me, like it's gonna represent me and like talk about me. You know what I mean? If my students one day decide to open up their own academy, and then that's just gonna reflect on what kind of person I was or who I was, and that's always in the back of my mind. Like I want my guys to be respectful, to be good human beings because that's how I was raised, and I don't want to go
Yeah.
out and like being like mad dogged by some random people that saw me online because I was being a douche or whatever. I want to be able
Yeah.
to go out and be safe and friendly and having people, hey Brandon, how's it going? And I want the same thing for my students and just to be able for them to come up that way. But man, thank you so much. It was an honor. I'm super super excited about doing this with you and come train whenever you want, man. Come train.
Yeah, absolutely. I will 100% do that for
Hell yeah.
sure.
Hell yeah. Can't
So
wait.
yeah, thank you, Brandon. Really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey friends, Abe here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode and sticking around to the very end. If you want to support it, leave a 5-star review on Spotify or check out www.maynideapodcast.com, join the mailing list, and stay up to date on all things The Main Idea, from future guests, sponsorship opportunities, products that I'm using to help me perform at my best, invites to ask me anythings, and any upcoming pertinent information to the show. I cannot do this show without you. It is literally why I show up each week and put these episodes together. So thank you from the bottom of my heart from being part of the community. I hope you have a great day.